afternoon. We're down in St Pauls, and I'm down here with Cleo Lake. Hi, Cleo.
Hello.
Hello. How are you today?
Can I just ask, so look at you or look at the camera?
Look at the camera. Yeah. Yeah. Is that all right? So we're just going to do a few questions then, really. So I just wanted to know who you are, what you do, where you come from, what's your story?
Yeah. Well, as you just said, my name's Cleo Lake. I live in St Pauls. I've lived here now for nearly 13 years. Before that, I grew up just the other side of the M32 in Easton. So I attended Easton Primary School, well, in nursery all the way up to juniors, and then went on to Colston Girls. So I've always enjoyed school, academia, that kind of stuff. I would describe myself as an artist, an activist, and people probably connect me more with dance.
Okay. So what's St Paul's about for you?
St Paul's is the spiritual home of the black community in Bristol, and I think it's somewhere that's internationally recognised as being a hub of resistance.
Yeah. And
I think sometimes you can't always appreciate how important it is historically and ongoing because you're in it. But also people who have lived here, maybe not from here, but have lived here and then moved on to other areas of Bristol or out of Bristol, they can really look back and appreciate the sense of community spirit that St Paul's has.
Okay. I've lived in Bristol since 2007. In my 8 years in Bristol, I've noticed big changes in Bristol in general.
Yeah.
But especially in St Paul's, in Easton, in the inner city areas, especially BS1 as well. What's your kind of feelings on what's going on in Bristol at the moment in that respect?
I suppose you're alluding to sort of gentrification or different communities and people moving in. I think, as it's been highlighted quite a lot in the local media over the last couple of weeks, the kind of sheer amount of students we get now in the city and the surrounding cities, which can bring good and bad points really. I think in terms of Bristol's resistance, students have always played a part in that. So even with the Bristol bus boycott, that was, students from Bristol Uni were a big part of the campaign. So that's an important thing. I think within St Paul's, I've been in the area, since I was born really, and had a family business here for the 80s. So I've seen the real kind of rundown element of it. And through my involvement in Carnival, I've also seen footage, say, from the 70s and 60s, where it was like a bomb site, and it was a slum. Literally? It was a slum, yeah. It was a terrible slum, where living conditions were just really awful for people, but it was a cheap place to live. Even back then, people were exploited by landlords, the same sort of thing that we today. So I think we now see, with the development of Cabot Circus, and when that came about, which was I think 2007-8, it also, for that redevelopment, it knocked down a lot of old buildings, some of which were a bit of eyesore, car parks, etc., etc. Growing up in Easton, my friends at the time, I'm talking about the age of 10, around that age, we spent a lot of our time in St Jude's, and we were a mixed bag of youngsters with our own different issues, our family issues, our circumstances. I'd say most of us were living below the poverty line in some way or another. It was the time when my mum would walk us to Gloucester Road to go to the second-hand shops when it really wasn't fashionable, and it was an embarrassment really. And young people go through all sorts of struggles from various backgrounds. Most of us were mixed race and tended to be half Jamaican, half white British. Also, I remember, a good friend called Albie, who was, probably Irish gypsy background, who was also in and we spent a lot of our time there, good memories, and it was emotional to see. You want the development, but at the same time, you see literally the knocking down of the places where you grew up, and also, sort of legends of things that have gone on near the River Free and that kind of stuff. And so as a reaction to that, I created a project called Foundations, and New Foundations, and a group of us made a dance theatre piece, which we took to the Cathedral in Clifton, which was spearheaded by Visible Circus at the time, or Art Space, Live Space, and also at the Q. So off the back of that, I think I like to have a creative reaction to what's going on. I think now we have a lot of, in inverted commas, luxury flats and, you know, middle to high-end properties that you can buy or rent in St Pauls, and not much social housing. Well, there's a lot of social housing, but no new social housing, apart from, you know, the estate of Junction 3.
Where's that, sorry?
Junction 3, which is just by the overpasses between St Paul's and Eastern,
okay.
which I think is a good thing.
That's the one with the library underneath.
That's right. Yeah. And that is social housing. I think most of it anyway, sort of run by Nightstone.
Okay.
I think I welcome that to the community, because I'm not someone who's just anti-development for the sake of it. I think as a person, even being here in the Malcolm X Centre, I want to be in nice environments. I want the best environment. I think the environment has a big impact on how people feel.
So what, just touching on the Malcolm X Centre, I know you're not leading that campaign, it's part of the wider community, but what does the Malcolm X Centre mean to you, and what does it represent? What's it all about? And what's going on at the moment for the Malcolm X?
Well, I think, going back to how I started, the Malcolm X Centre is, again, internationally known. It's a major hub for the community at large as well. I mean, some people may not know that the refugee rights group are here sort of Tuesday to Friday, and that serves a section of the community. Anyone's free to hire the space. We have yoga here. Me, myself, since 2008, I work with the elders, so now the hall has been set up for the elders group.
Yeah.
Which,
so what happens in that then, Cleo?
They come every Monday, there's probably about 60 of them.
Yeah.
And they come from 10 until 3 every Monday, where they can have a low-cost lunch, have some dance exercise, a bit of singing. It's a social club. And they're here, and they've been here for a number of years now. They used to be at what now is the Learning Centre. The hall in the Learning Centre was actually a kind of 24/7 elders people's place and space, which obviously got scrapped in the wake of the Learning Centre, which a lot of resentment and feeling about.
So it seems to me that there's this kind of a series of events that have happened in St Paul's specifically. So the St Paul's Learning Centre, now the Malcolm X, St Paul's Carnival, for example, and then, like you're saying, the ongoing developments and stuff like that. I mean, in a loose sense, I've got my questions here, and I'm asking people about what gentrification means to them. Obviously, it's depending on your perspective, it's quite an open term. What does it mean, loosely speaking, to you?
How I've understood it is it's about redeveloping an area, and in a sense bringing the area up for the purposes of maybe attracting some people in. And I can't see it all as a bad thing, if I'm honest, because I think, as I've said, I like to see nice environments, and I'd rather have a place that looks good than a place that looks run down to live in and to bring my children up in. However, I think the kind of things we've seen in St Paul's have happened without a lot of consultation, and I'm talking more about the council-led initiatives. So if we go back to looking at the Learning Centre, I'm sure there are sections of the community who wanted it and thought it was a good idea, but I think there's probably an overwhelming majority of local people who would have rather have seen that money spent here and improved the centre that we had. You know, they'll use the excuse of the black and white cafe and we need to redevelop these houses and blah, blah, blah. But I mean, the Learning Centre was a failed story for quite a number of years. It wasn't utilised. I mean, we've seen it now because Bristol City Council couldn't manage the Learning Centre. It was a failure, and that's why they've now handed it over to Ethical Property. And also on the note of Carnival, that was our big green area where we could have the main stage and have it not so congested. But now all that space is more or less taken up with the Learning Centre. So gentrification, I also believe that, you know, the theory obviously is that is to middle to upper class people in that bracket, and I I also wouldn't be the sort of person who goes out and says I'm against middle class or upper class people. I think for society to work now, it's going to take people from all sections of society to come forward. However, I'm always see myself as someone from the grassroots. But I feel that people from different backgrounds have something to offer in the campaign to make a more equal society.
The question I was thinking of this morning was, what do you think Malcolm X would do or say if he knew what was going on at the moment with this centre and with things in St Paul's?
He would see it completely as a plot of white supremacy. I think he would brush past any of the minor, they probably are minor, hiccups and issues that management have had. I think he would look at the bigger picture and see it as an element of white supremacy that needed to be stamped down completely. In 2016, it would need to be highlighted internationally, and for people to come together as the black community here and near and far, and also the allies of various races and backgrounds, to say actually we're not going to stand for this, because this centre was, if you like, a political gain and a victory for the black community against the system in the 80s.
So when did the Malcolm X Centre, that was after the Bristol riots?
St
Paul's riots. So that was 1980...
81.
81, okay. What's your kind of feelings on, what's your, if you had a message to speak to Bristol about, what would it be?
I would say a lot of people need to take the time to educate themselves on history. What we're going through at the moment as a country really is this idea of amnesia. People like Gore Vidal have said it, who was sort of a leading American writer. Also more recently, artists like John Comfer, who's going to be the Honor Freemason. This idea of amnesia, of forgetting what England or Britain has done historically in the world, and also forgetting people's individual struggles. You know, people will say to me, oh, why are those, or the idea of, oh God, well, it's that again, it's that nationalism, or you're talking about slavery again, or you're talking about freedom of information came out a couple of weeks ago relating to the riots in the 80s across the country, and how the Conservative at that time was saying, oh my God, well, white people have been oppressed for years, why aren't they out rioting? It's because of lack of, bad upbringing and blah, 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 why the black people are on the streets rioting. It wasn't exclusively black, there were white people there rioting as well. And I think there's nothing to stop the white working class people standing up and saying that we want justice for this or that, we want equality, and I'm sure they are in different sections. However, I think that the black community has always been far more visible, and have had,
Why do you think that is?
I think because coming off the back of enslavement for so many years, and then migrating to a country where you were basically sold a lie to be here, I think the tolerance level is far lower, and perhaps the injustice is more obvious against us at times.
One of the main reasons I'm making these short films of interviews is to try and capture, and in the hope of not losing like what we're talking about really, these stories which have massive cultural relevance.
Yeah.
My concern really is that it kind of, it just basically gets washed away, and then the stories are lost, and things get forgotten. And say down the road in Stokes Croft, for example, I've seen this again, gentrification happen. My interests are the anarchist bookshop, the free shop, telepathic heights, the squats, the building before it was Tesco's, etc. And it's weird because I've seen it kind of happen over the last 4 or 5 years, happen very quickly, but there's not really been any kind of, for me anyway, like this kind of story being told about how it happened. It's just kind of happened. So my kind of feeling is that we need to make sure that these stories are told, that they are on record of happening. To
document it, because I think going back to the whole Stokes Croft thing, I'd say probably about a decade ago, it was a bit of a state, but I think things like the free shop, which I used to go into, and other bits and pieces, kind of put Stokes Croft on the map. And that was from grassroots level, whichever way you want to look at it. Then other people see, oh, right, okay, it's a bit of activity now. Now we're going to come in. Now we're going to put our investment in where we didn't 10 years ago, where we held on to properties and let them run down. and it's kind of, again, riding off the back of other people's hard work. And to an extent of excluding those people who were the people who started it.
So, you live and work in St Paul's now then?
Yeah.
Again, generally speaking, what are the kind of things that you really, really love about St Paul's? And what are the things you really, really,
I love the variety in St Paul's.
Yeah.
I love the local businesses and local shops.
I was just going to ask you about that, because I saw you post on Facebook about local businesses.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really positive thing to be involved in and speak about. Can you tell me about that as well?
There's a number of sort of new businesses in the area, with people from various backgrounds. Quite a number of Middle Eastern ones, as well as our barber shops and those kind of things. So enterprise has always been booming in St Paul's, and I'm not sure if the message goes out to wider sections of Bristol, just how positive St Paul's is and what is here and what you can get in St Paul's. Whether it's clothing, food, different experience, etc., etc. So I think there is a lot to celebrate about the area. I can't remember what the question was.
The question was just generally speaking, the good things that you really love about St Paul's.
I think people talk to each other in St Paul's. I think you can be on the bus stop and you're always, maybe not as poor and friendly as today, but you will always find a few people sat on a bench having a chat, putting the world to rights, having a debate. And that's what it is. It's a friendly atmosphere. It's people who do connect to each other. And, there may have been struggles and issues in the past with new people coming in and getting on, but now people live side by side with each other. We've also got a big East African community, very active and have businesses here. And really it's like walking down Ashton Road towards St Werburgh's, Montpellier, near Sussex Place, that area. It's like being sort of like a little Africa, a sort of melting pot of different cultures, and that's what I like about St Paul's.
When I first moved to Bristol, the first place I lived in was St Paul's, and I moved on to Sussex Place actually.
Yeah.
And as a student, I think we were paying £275 a month, and then bills, that's like 50 quid or whatever.
About triple that now.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I know the landlord who owns the same house, and he's charging £400 a room now for the students.
Wow.
So that's nigh on double, basically, including the bills and stuff. So. I don't know,
What I don't like is the rubbish fly tipping.
Right.
I don't like the fact that people don't take responsibility sometimes for their own environment and themselves. I don't like people who talk and don't do. That gets on my nerves. Sort of Facebook activists, brilliant suggestions. Okay, so who's going to do it? Do they expect people who are already carrying way too much to get up and do this, or can they do it? Everyone can make suggestions, but not many people, it seems, can do the action. My feeling is that everyone has the power to do something.
Yeah. I think that's good. I might be paraphrasing Gil Sweat-Heron actually there. But basically this kind of feeling that if everyone did a little bit where they can, when they can, and in whatever capacity they could, then we would see the massive shifts in society that
you're absolutely right.
Lots of people are talking about, like you say.
Yeah, and I think, to be fair, I think sometimes it maybe takes people who know better to do better, but also to take that position of leadership and be able to delegate tasks and just be clear. Well, actually, here's a whole list of things that needs doing. What are your skills? And then perhaps someone can do this, someone can do that. Rather than people thinking they want to do something, but they don't know what.
And then that I think that for me kind of leads to a feeling of powerlessness, because then you feel like you say, overburdened by the massive social issues that are going on, and if it always falls to the same people, then you end up, nothing happening at all.
I think going back to the rubbish issue, I think the Green Capital was a big disappointment.
Okay.
I think it promised a lot, and I went to a number of the preliminary meetings and stuff, and really felt that great, councillors and other people involved are on board to try and educate and change some of the things in the inner city, i.e. St Paul's and Stapleton Road. And it wasn't on the radar. It just completely fell through, and it was a very big missed opportunity. I mean, I believe that probably if we say 100% before Green Capital in terms of takeaways and polystyrene and the issue of that, as a smaller example, I bet 99% of all the takeaways still use polystyrene. And I thought that would have been a very basic thing to do, just to go around and highlight to different traders about waste and about this and about that. But it didn't seem to be important for some of the people at the top. And I also thought it was an opportunity, and I put this forward, that couldn't Bristol reach out to who I believe to be its cousins, whether that's West Africa or the Caribbean, from my perspective, to say, right, we are green capital, and actually we're going to use this as an opportunity to reach out, whether it's only a small token of we're going to, get people over to do solar panels or provide water. No one cared at the top, and I'm still waiting for, after doing a leadership course, I'm still waiting for Bristol City Council to get back to me with a placement. This is nearly a year on, so I've got doubts about whether there's serious will to make changes and get eligible people who care and want to make a difference, to actually support them to do that make that change. I don't feel there is at the moment.
I've been asking people about the Bristol Green Capital last year now, and I mean we spoke about Stapleton allotments, Feed Bristol, which was where the Metro bus is basically where it's planned to go through there now. That's Bluefinger soil, really fertile land, which has just been tarmacked over now, basically. So, I mean, I don't know.
I think that's another case of money over morals, really, and how things will get shoehorned in because of investment and because of the people at the top who perhaps, well, it's a fact they do have far more say than any of us on the ground.
What's your getting a general question, your feelings around Bristol City Council and the way that the council, consults with its communities across Bristol?
I think there are avenues of engagement if you wish to engage. I think some of the onus has to be on the people to engage. So whether that's... That's right. Whether that is turning up to the council meetings, the next one being the 19th of January, at Bristol, at Bristol.
Yeah, right,
it's hard to say that.
Yeah.
And registering to vote. Even if you don't vote, threaten to vote, because that'll scare them as well. I think there's been a lot of, because of distrust and scepticism, people say, well, I'm not bothering. But actually, sometimes you have to beat people at their own game, and that means engaging with the political system.
Okay. On a more personal note then, away from, obviously politics is a big part of what's going on at the moment and stuff, but your kind of personal, you mentioned your dance stuff and things like that, which I'm really interested in. Your kind of personal dreams and aspirations for yourself and for your community, what are they?
I want to see people come together more and work collectively to achieve the changes that we want to see. I want to see people come together and have a vision, whether that's for Carnival, the Malcolm X, or generally for St Paul's, or our children's life, education, etc., etc. For me personally, now I've been able to take a back seat from Carnival, trying to sort of head up the organisation. I'm going to go back into doing my artwork. So I'm starting a residency at the Onalfini, which I'm really excited about, and actually be working and responding to an installation by one of my favourite artists, John O'Confer, so that's really good. And I think, again, using the political possibilities through art and using art and dance as a way to connect people. I did run a sound system dance class which was quite successful last year, but I had to sort of put that all on the back burner because of the barrage of challenges that were coming from Carnival. However, on the 21st I'm relaunching my dance classes at the Quimber Centre, which I'm calling it Dance Riot this time.
And where's that?
Quimber Centre is in St Paul's on Hepburn Road, just off Brigstock Road, and my intention for that is there will be elements of choreography, and I'll be starting a dance company called Sound Sirens and having a Bristol chapter, but also going around the country having different chapters. So I think it's also important to unite and connect with people across the country. But the dance class, Dance Right, is really for anyone, all levels, just for people who want to get moving. I really believe in it. What can be achieved? I think dance has been overlooked quite a lot. yet in so many cultures it's an integral part of the culture. Even if you want to look at pagan Britain, dance is always so important to bind the community, but that seems to have been pushed aside, so I'd like to revive that. And I'm thinking of taking it to the streets and using it as a way of raising awareness and hopefully encouraging people to register to vote.
Okay. I think that's it really.
Thank you.
I just wanted to ask you quickly as well, because it is on people's minds about St Paul's Carnival and stuff.
Yeah.
What's the future for St Paul's Carnival? I mean, we didn't see one, well, last year, now 2015. What's the future for St Paul's Carnival? Much loved community carnival.
I think it will definitely come back. I think at the moment there's a few things that need to be ironed out. I think it's unfair how Bristol City Council have treated the Carnival as an organisation. There were some internal issues and capacity issues, but above all it's been an issue, non-delivery has come about because of lack of event management. So I think it would even be sensible for the community to say, right, until we've trained ourselves up to the standard that the police deem and Bristol City Council deem us to be able to do our own paperwork and to do our own risk assessment to make it a safe event, and let's not bother, because why are we always handing it over to other people? And we've basically, as a community, been disempowered for about a decade, if not longer. I think something will happen this year. I think there'll be what there was this year, which was a grassroots event here at the Malcolm X, possibly with an add-on of a procession, which I'd like to see, a masquerade, and people really get involved and really highlight the culture and the political nature of Carnival through the masquerade, and for people to engage with that. I believe there will be a big Carnival that will come back. However, I feel that the council and the authorities are now using, dips in whatever to throw the book at the Carnival and push for stuff like an early close, possibly moving it into a park, etc. And I think, the challenges that St Paul's Carnival face are a national story, really. And I think, again, we are the latest finished carnival on the streets, and that's probably a big reason why Bristol's such a popular city. But these things aren't always acknowledged. It's not in the cultural framework of the city. It's not respected amongst other events that happen in the city. It's not treated equally. And I think people need to somehow, without being anarchists and rebels, they need to see that natural law is always going to be bigger than the law of man, and do what they can to carry that through. I think as a black community, it's an event for everyone, but it is something that I believe ownership belongs to the African Caribbean community. And I feel that until we're given our own piece of land to do as we will, then we're always going to have issues. And I feel all of it will relate back and will be in the realm of the whole debate for reparations, that Bristol's dodging and ducking and not addressing and shoving under the carpet, and isn't addressing it because we don't have the sufficient leadership. And why wait for these arguments to knock your door down? Why not try to create a dialogue ahead of that? So I feel that unless attitudes change, and again, unless the right people get, not even in the organisations, but get into the council, we're going to see all these issues resurfacing. And it's hard to say, but I feel that I think there's the potential for certain people in authority to be called out internationally on elements of human rights. And I feel that there's a big potential for Bristol as a city to be shamed quite badly. I wouldn't want to see that happen, but I'm not clear who's making the steps to prevent that at this stage.
One thing that I've always loved about Bristol is that it, for me, stands loud and proud and does speak out about issues such as you're talking about. And although times I think are hard at the moment because everyone's kind of up against the wall with so many different struggles, but both personal and political, social. Social. I think speaking your truth basically is really important at the moment, whatever it is, and really coming out and saying, well, this is what's going on for me, and linking up these stories of truth. Because the feeling I get is that these problems are happening throughout, not just this country, across the world, and they are all linked, and they are all connected, and they are all, you know, and I think if we can start to actually link up these...
You're absolutely right. I mean, we saw it with Black Lives Matter, with not only people on Black Friday shutting down malls in America, but we saw that movement come to London. And, you know, there was a shopping centre that was shut down around Christmas time where people did what they call a die-in, where they simply lie on the floor and refuse to move. And I mean, is Bristol City Council aware of this movement? Because for us as a community, sometimes it's hard to detach yourself from the global picture when you see injustice happening on such a scale. Well, sorry, but I can't disconnect myself because we're carrying all of that with us.
So the personal is very much linked to the...
And I think what you're also going to see is, because the Malcolm X as a person, what he stood for and how important he is globally, and then the Malcolm X Centre as a symbol and a connection to that, I think you're going to see an international movement now of solidarity for the centre, for the community, for the people, and I think there would be a big victory. Big victory, and it's up to Bristol City Council now to see what part they're going to play in that. So because some people are tired of playing by the rules.
And so the notice was served for the was it 28th of February. So that's
I mean, to be fair, though, that will be contested, and you may know yourself, being an ex-squatter or whatever, that it's the legal process can be quite long. And you know, the message is that the centre is still open. And people can still book it, all this, you know, services such as the elders, they'll still be here.
So in a strange way, it may even encourage more activity into the Malcolm X. Now suddenly people are like, actually, no, you know what, we're not going to just allow that to happen. And maybe, well, I hope people get more involved, you know, and like want to, like you're saying about the, you know, the different classes that go on and stuff.
That's it.
Great.
Thanks.
Yeah, great. Cool.